Hello, welcome to our Design Lab 4.0. So in this particular Design Lab version, we are giving out for free our review, our mentorship, and our coaching to young designers, so to help them grow whether they have or don't. You get what I mean? So in this particular version, we'll be learning the Letermark logotype, how to make a Letermark logotype and the reasons behind that. As you can see, we have the word mark or logotype below it. We're going to explain and understand the differences between these two. But before then, I have a simple tweak or a simple tip for those of us using Adobe Illustrator. So if you want to make the theme of or the interface of your designer darker, this is simply how to do it. So head over to your edit, scroll down till you find the preference, scroll down till you find the performance or user interface, click on that. You're going to see this pop out. Now, if you click on the white version, you're going to see the old classic Illustrator theme made available. So you select on this is what comes to the Illustrator tool by default. Now, this is the dark theme and this what it looks like. And this makes it more easier for you to, scroll your eyes around the board and do your work as simple as possible. So I like this and I select dark theme. So that's the tip for today. Now, heading on to what we have, what is a lettermark and what is a wordmark or a logotype? A wordmark and logotype are the same thing. There are no difference between the both. This could be the older name, this could be the older name logotype, and the wordmark could be the most recent name given to that. So a wordmark logotype is a kind of logo where the name, the full name itself, not actually part of the name. The full names are used as the logo icon itself, or are used as the logo design for the logo design itself. It could be Facebook, as you can see, Google, as you can see, Coca-Cola, FedEx, Toyota, and so on and so forth. As long as the logo name itself, the full name of the logo, appears as the design. Anywhere you see the logo, you must see the full name appear. Okay, that is what a wordmark is. It's totally different from a lettermark. A lettermark is just the use of the logo initials. The name initials are, for instance, we have the HP. It stands for Hewlett Packard. So you choose Hewlett, and Hewlett you pick the H, and the Packard you pick the P. So in LV we have the Louis Vuitton. Here we have the CNN Cable News Network. We pick the C, N, and N. So this is just what lettermark is about. Picking the name initials, some people call this abbreviation. Okay, picking the name initials to prepare your logo. For instance, we have something like so. So we have Lorem Ipsum. The name initials here, if the client don't want the full name to show like so, name initial we can pick is the L and the I. That's the name initial to prepare your lettermark. Now, what is the reason why clients choose to use a lettermark? Now, spoilers, it is not the client that actually choose a logo type or logo format or form for you to design with. In most cases, okay? In most cases, it is the designers that choose the type based on what the client's name issues. There are issues you could run into that may make you choose to design with a lettermark logotype. One of which is if the name is difficult to be understood. Possibly the name look a little bit confusing for people when pronouncing it or so. So you could choose the lettermark to use the initial of the name to prepare the design, so it will be memorable in the mind of the customers of your clients. That's number one. Number two is if the name is too long. If the name have too many words in it, like names that have more than 4 words that make up the name of the brand. So that type of brand could decide to go with the word lettermark, because if you are putting up those names to become the logo name and then putting up an icon, it will look a little more complex and there won't be enough space. When it is scaled, it won't be very visible. The name itself won't be very visible, and there won't be enough space for the icon to shine. So you could say, what about HP? Is this not an icon? This is negative space. Not all negative space types are icons, though you could use icons in lettermark, but that doesn't mean that all shapes you see as a lettermark have an icon. For instance, the HP, as we can see here, this is not an icon. Okay, this is a negative space. A negative space is a kind of design you make striking out the name or the object out of a shape. This is actually a shape, practically a vector shape. So it is not an icon that we can point at and say, okay, this is this particular icon type. Because if we call this a circle, it's not perfect. Because of the negative space, it is no more a perfect circle. So with that being understood, we get into work right now and prepare our design. If you have not hit the subscribe button, please do so now. Also click on the like button, as that will encourage me to understand that you like what I'm doing. Also learn to share to your friends if you want them to learn or join our academy too. Links to the WhatsApp group will be in the description of this video below. Okay, all links you'll be looking for will be in the description of this video. So let's start right away. So before we get to that, let's just delete all of this, or let's just leave all of this. We'll get back to them maybe. So let's get to choose our name. For instance, we may be designing with a name like so. This is a case where you use the Letermark to make your work. So for instance, we have Larus Ingma Mata Call Association. So we have this name. As you can see, association, we can't even write the full name because it's too long, and you understand what happens there. Now, what do we do in this case? What we do is choose the name initials to prepare the work, and as we do so, it is automatically a Letermark logotype. It is not the client that tells us to do it. The client just provides us the name, then we make the work to work for them according to what is obtainable. In designing, there are obtainable concepts and there are non-obtainable concepts. For instance, if we decide to make an icon on top of this name and push this name to be below, it could work in most cases, but you understand how this is going to look like when you try to read it again and again. It's very boring. So you got to understand the way you place your suggestions to your client. Let it not be like you're imposing it on them. You could advise them, please, we have to do this like so it will be easier for people to understand. But if you insist I should go with the normal format you ask for, then I don't have an option than to do just what you want. When you put or place your suggestion to your client like so, it becomes more easier for them to listen to you. Some of the designers or young designers will be like, if this is how you want it, then let's do it, okay? Or this is how it must be. No, we don't do that. You don't have to do that. You just have to be very, very fair and plain and suggestive to your client too. So we go with the name initials. We're going to run this with a capital letter. We have L-O-I-M-O and K and A. So let's make our design work. Now I see most people who make, because most of Letermarks are made with monogram type. Now I'm going to define or explain differences between logotypes and logo formats or forms. That's what people don't understand most times. They mistake when they see something like negative space. They say this is a negative space logo. There's nothing like a negative space logo. Negative space is a styling you give to a kind of logo. For instance, we have this HP. It is a Letermark logo. Then we applied a negative space to it. This is a style. It's just like applying colors to a design. It is a style. It's not actually, it's a styling element. It's not actually a type of logo itself. Okay, so when you see a logo, get to understand what type of logo it is, not actually the style used in designing the logo that matters. What matters is the kind of logo you're working with, in case you're asked. So we get to understand that this is the name initials, and even with the abbreviation, it's still long. Okay, but we're gonna manage it like so. So let's walk around this and see what we can come up with. So what makes a Letermark logotype interesting is the styling around it. Your styling makes it more interesting to people. It makes it more interesting to you. Okay, it makes it more interesting to people who are buying from your clients and so on. So we are going to style this a little bit and see what we can come up with. First off, I would like to add a little bit of thickness to it. Now, why do we add thickness to our design? We add thickness to our design so that whenever it is scaled from afar, it can still be readable. Okay, especially when we are dealing with Letermarks. You have to add a little bit of thickness to it, as you can see from stuffs going on here, so that from afar, it will be what? Readable. There are some lettermark designs that don't apply this styling. It's not a compulsory stuff for you to do. For instance, you see the Louis Vuitton, there is no much thickness to it. Why? Because these are just two names. Two names tend to become more visible from afar than multiple names. As you can see, once it is about 3, there should be a little more thickness added to it for it to show. As you can see in the ESPN, see the thickness, CNN, see the thickness, RCA, JVC, IBM, and so on. But you see the CN, HM, VA, LV, NY, the thickness are not very obvious. So when the initials are more than 3, you tend to add a little more thickness because it scales a little. It's gonna scale a little more thinner than it's supposed to. When you scale it from afar, it's gonna be a little more thinner than it's supposed to when it is just 2 letters. So once we're done with that, next thing we have to convert our text to become a shape or a vector shape. How do we do that? We can head over to Objects in Illustrator and expand. Converting it makes it easier. Hit on OK again. It makes it easier for us to now control or style or manipulate our text the way we want. That's the first step. The first step for the thing you need to do. Now, there are people who use technicalities to make their work. I'm going to show you what that looks. As you can see from the screen, there are people who use technicalities like so to make their work. That's still possible. We could still do that, but this is beginner's guide. As you understand, I'm going to make a separate course. That's going to be a professional course actually. Possibly in our monogram course in our Design Lab 2.0, we are going to do that. Not just possibly, we are going to do that. We're going to do the practicalities and the technicalities behind monogram logotypes or lettermark logotypes. So let's go on styling. Now, once we are done with converting this to a shape, what you need to do is to ungroup it. So ungroup it, hold your Ctrl, Shift, and G to ungroup all elements. As you can see from the area here, let's undo, let's redo. As you can see, everything is separated on its own. So this separation means that we can practically, with the direct selection tool, we can practically separate this, and separate this. But before, we can't do that. So now we have that achieved. Next thing we have to do is to start styling our design. One of the thing I would like us to do is to move around stuffs to make it, as I said earlier, these stuffs look a little bit more longer than I expected. So let's make it a little more, let's bring these stuffs together without affecting it too much. So let's raise this L above and use the direct selection tool to select these parts and expand it a little. So once we do so, we can pull this down and place it at the top here. Okay. Next thing, we can use the direct selection tool and select this part and pull it down a little more. Make sure it's equal to the part at the top. So we have the L and the I both joined together. So now we can then bring close this once to match these other parts, still maintaining the same sizes that they have, or the same respects of padding they have for each other. I talked about padding in our previous class. So we have that. Next thing, this is okay to be called a logo itself. This is okay to be called a logo. You don't need to do a lot of stuff. Just a little bit of styling that makes it different from what every other person have elsewhere is what makes your work a logo. Okay, so next thing, we could decide to do a little more styling to the text. So I could pick up on K and decide to work on K separately. So let's pull it out over here. Let's separate this Mr. Man and deal with it. So first thing we can do is to, play around with these parts. This is actually a brand for an agricultural firm or agricultural organization. So we could pick out or pull out the parts, the top part of the key. Okay, like so. Let's just pull out these parts. Let's just pull out these parts. We don't want these parts. So select the bolt, use your shape builder to select on it, hold the Alt key and select on the part you want to remove. You can scatter as you want, don't mind me. So now we have this part part of the K. We want to add a leaf at the edge of the K to make it look more stylish. Let's zoom a little bit more closer and do a little more work to this edge. But before we do a little more to that edge, let's add our leaf first. So let's create a simple leaf. To create a simple leaf, just hit on multiple parts, hit on. Just creating a leaf is simply creating a kind of stuff that look like a, we'll call this, just watch closely what I'm doing. I'll call this like a kind of gem or gemstone. So once we're done creating a gemstone like so, we could select on the curvature tool from over here, the curvature tool, and double click on the parts we have created. Remember, we created that with the pen tool. Okay, double click on the parts we have created and we have our leaf. We can now style this part a little or draw it in a little like so, pull this down a little like so, and we are good to go. So the top side, we can rearrange it a little so you can style and size fine. We can decide to pull this to the edge like so. Make sure the line between that and this is equal. As you can see, it's not equal. Let's pull the circle in a little until we see the line popping out. So we're actually trying to just style to add a little bit of agricultural feel to the design we are making. So once we're done with that, we can select the both of them, come closer so we can style these other parts. Select on these and point on these other parts. Let's style it. Let's just play around with these parts. Okay, we actually double click on this so you can play around with this part a little. And this other part for the leaf, we can curve it a little so you can have the same feel with what we have in this other part. Click that part and curve it a little more. Now we have the issue below here. We can also do or deal with that from this part. Just curve this part a little and curve this part a little. So we have the flow we want. So we have the flow flowing in from the K to the leaf we have over here. Okay, without having any edge looking so stupid. As we can see, we have this edge looking stupid, like we don't want. It's too curved at this edge, this particular part. So what do? You can select on the direct selection tool, click on the element itself and click on that particular anchor point and drag it out to smoothen it. Okay, you can still do the same with the other parts which you find if you want to smoothen. I will talk about this in a little while. So once we got that part smoothened, we can head up to join our the both elements and move them back. So select on the both elements and join them. To join the elements, to join two elements in Illustrator, head over to your Pathfinder, click on it and click on Unite. If you don't find the Pathfinder, head over to Windows, scroll down till you find the Pathfinder and click it. This dialog will appear and you continue applying your style. So click on the Pathfinder and click on Unite. When we unite this, you see that both the K and the leaf we get to be joined together. Click on it, is joined together. So now any color we apply to this will automatically apply to the both of them at the same time. So we're not adding color now. We have not come to color styling yet. So we can move it back to the part it was before now. Very good. So we have this as the style or design we have. Let's do a little bit more styling to this. Okay, so yours, the essence of this styling, this essence or reason why I'm styling all this, making this look like this, is to show you the possibility of what we could do when we try to work around our design. Okay, you can work around any kind of design the way you want. Just look around it, observe it closely, and know what you will add or what you subtract. For instance, if we decide to add a dot at the top of the box we have here, we could decide to just duplicate this, okay, add it to the top and just make it a square over there and leave it like so. When you zoom out, you see that this doesn't look good. It's a little bit distractive. So what you do, you just delete it. So the essence of making your design is to add stuff that are relevant and remove stuff that are not relevant. Okay, so now this time around we are going to do a little bit more styling. Since the leaves have a little bit of curving, let's add a little bit of curving to our style in our design. So one of which we could select on this, select on the direct selection tool, and you can add a little bit of radius to the top and the bottom part. To add a radius to different parts at the same time, hold the shift in your keyboard, click on the anchor point, click on the next anchor point, and you can leave the shift now and then drag in. You see, the both of them can now drag in accordingly. We are just going to add a little bit of the curve and we are good to go for that. So we are trying to make this look like a leaf. So just another point I want to make in a Letermark is trying to make meaning with every part of the design. Okay, try to make meaning with every part of the design. So when someone look at this, they get to understand what you're trying to portray. When they look at this, they're trying to understand what you're trying to portray also. Okay, so we're done adding that curve. This is time to add a little bit of curve to our designs. So let's add more curves to the rest of the designs or the rest of the letters. So I would like to play around with the K. Let's click on this part and add a little bit curve to the bottom part. Let's click once and add. And the A, let's add a little bit of, okay, you can select on the curvature tool to select and add an anchor point. So add an anchor point to an already existing one. Add another anchor point to already existing one, if that would make any sense to you. Okay, now we can use the direct selection tool to curve these edges a little, and we curve the two edges at the top a little. Okay, I don't like this bottom part. I don't really like that, so we are going to remove the point we created. We are going to remove that. The point we created above, like so, we are going to also reduce it a little, or let's just curve it down a little, like so. I think I like it now. Let's add this one also and see how it will look. I think leaving this one straight and leaving the main one curved makes a little more sense. Let's curve the two edges for this to make it look like an avocado pear. So we can click on this and click on this also to style or curve the edges a little, and we can curve this edge a little also, just a little. We can curve, should we curve this edge? Let's curve this edge a little, just a little. I think if you are adding too much of curves, it makes it look a little bit unserious. So just don't add too much of curves to your designs. So let's reduce the curves we added to this one, because from afar I don't really like it. Fine. So we have that point. We can add a little bit more curve to the edge, to the bottom parts. Does that look good? No. So some parts could be curved. Just do what works for you, okay? Now we could add a trademark sign, TM, okay? And use the lighter version of the poppins to do that. Now, as you can see, we didn't use much of technicalities in this design, and it shines better, okay? It looks nice to me. You're going to do a little bit of styling to the color. Usually I have my color palette. I provided the color palette in the previous course. I think I also provide the link to the color palette for you guys to work with. So let's drag in my color palette and we can just play around with the colors we have here. So we select on this, you can pull in the green. I don't like the light version of the green, so let's modify the color palette. I want the green to be a little bit darker. Fine, good. So let's use we're going to use the gradient tool to, style it a little. If you have been in the previous course, you understand what I'm trying to do now. It's very simple. So we have that part styled. We can also style the K with the same color variants. Okay. And let's see the other ones and see if applying the same colors will make sense or make any sense. I don't really like it. Let's go with the black and just leave the colors green. So if we leave this color and this color green, we haven't it's now looking as though it is negative or so. So we're going to play around just leaving our our eye over here to be the icon, or whenever we want to change everything, we can transform everything to be green, which I think is most preferable. Now let's apply that right away. So apply this green, we select and style it itself. I wouldn't suggest you select everything and add the color gradient at the same time. Add them one after the other so that you can have control over what you are treating. Okay, add this also. Okay, and we also add this finally. Let's add it to the bottom parts. Fine. So there is a little bit of styling we could do to the K to make it shine better than the rest of them. So what do? Select on the pen tool and point from the top. Let's try to style this in a way it looks more interesting. Let's start from the top and we curve to these parts. Curve to this part. If you have watched the previous courses, you understand what I'm doing too. So select the both of them, use the curvature, the shape builder tool to remove the parts that you don't want. So we have this shape at the middle. So you can select on it specifically and click on your curvature tool to actually play around with it. Okay. So you see what we have over here. You can curve this like so. And use the gradient tool to just style or add the gradient. Let's just make it more lighter. Let's pull out the gradient from this one to shine from the top side. Fine. Okay, so in the K we have a little bit of styling there. You can apply the styling to the rest of them also. Okay, so it doesn't mean only for the K we can style. We could also style the I. We could also style the L and so on. So select the both of them, use the shape builder tool and remove the parts you don't want. Then select on the one outside and give it a little bit of curve. Okay. And give the styling. Give it a little bit of styling. I think it's becoming too much. You can use this to control the styling area or the styled area. Fine. We have something over here which we don't want. You can remove that. You can always remove what we don't want from over here. So we use the shape builder tool also to pull that out. So we have the shape here. I want us to play around a little more with this color. Playing around with your color, just do what you can. Okay, just do what you can to make sure everything works. I think the one beneath should have darker color and the one above should have lighter color. I think so. Fine. So we are good to go. So that's practically how you could leave this at this color. You don't need to change or make a change to that. So that's practically how we converted our brand design, which is for an agricultural firm or association, to become just a lettermark, as you can see from here. Okay, and a little bit of styling makes this look more realistic. You get the point. So we could now add this as one of the design we have here. Let's separate it and do just that. So apply a color in the background. Could call this could be white. Okay, arrange and we send to the back. Let's reduce the size a little more. Okay, fine. We're running out of time, so we can now place this over here. Bring it to the front, arrange, bring everything to the front, and that is it. So guys, your assignment will be made available in the group. Okay, your assignment will be made available in the group for those who join our group. You can join the group with the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like this video.